Hey, what's up? This is Dylan from Stupid Raisins, and this is how to use HelpPop. You'll find HelpPop in the Titles browser and in the Effects browser, both under the name HelpPop. You'll notice that some templates are both Titles and Effects. They do the same thing, but are implemented in different ways. For example, a title is great for controlling the duration of the effect. However, keep in mind that any clip underneath that title will be affected by it. So you'll notice all of this is moving, both the logo and the video clip. But the effect version of that template will only affect the clip that it's been applied to. Let's take a look at these layout tools, and let's start with the guidelines template. I can quickly move my guidelines on screen with these controls. I can customize them further by going to the title inspector. If you don't see this open, click this button with the 3 sliders and then click on the square with a T to open the title inspector. I can change the color of the guidelines. I can also change their opacity, and I can change how thick they are. And I can also change the position with a publish parameter. One thing that's cool is I can restrict the movement to a certain amount of pixels. So I'll check this box, quantize, and now when I move it, it's going to move it every 250 pixels. So here I am at 0, and now when I go down, it's going to snap it to negative 250 pixels, or down to negative 500 pixels. But if I want to move it freely, all I have to do is uncheck quantize, and now I can move that guideline up and down with no restrictions. The transform tool is great for resizing, moving, and rotating something. I'm using the title so I can change the duration of it. And then I can use these on-screen controls to move it around, resize it, and rotate. I can rotate the Z-axis along the Y-axis and the X-axis. All of these parameters are published as well, and I even can adjust the anchor point so I can change where it's rotated about. So if I move this way down here, now you'll see the rotation happens on the edge of the video. All right, let's make a split screen. First stack your clips. Then open up the effects browser, go to HelpPop, and look for the layout tools section. Next, drag and drop these split screen effects onto your clips. With the clip selected, we have some on-screen controls. We can change the size, the position, and the rotation as well. Let's go ahead and fix this one as well. I'll zoom in a little bit and I'll pull it down so we can see her face. And then this one's a little bit off, so I'll select that clip and I'll move her over into frame. There we go. And here's what that looks like. Not bad. We've got a split screen in just a matter of seconds. Next up is the snapper tool. I've got my transparent logo here and I put it inside a compound clip. It's not necessary, but if you're using snapper and it cuts off on the edges, then put it in a compound clip and then apply snapper. I'll drag and drop it on, and you'll see it will make it smaller and it adds some on-screen controls. I can adjust the size with this ring right here, and I can also rotate it. Now here's where the magic of snapper happens. When I click on this to move it around, you'll notice that the logo is snapping into place at different increments. Go to the video inspector and you'll see some published parameters under the effect. We can change the size of the snap. Let's go up to 500. Now when I move this around, it will snap it every 500 pixels into place. Let's take a look at the movement tools. Let's add fade to this logo. And that immediately adds a fade in and then a fade out at the end. If I select the clip and go to the video inspector, I have some options here. I can change how fast or slow it fades in. I can also offset the fade. I can tell Final Cut to start the fade a little bit later, 10 frames later. And I can also say end the fade earlier, let's say 16 frames. And this is how that looks. We have a delay in the fade, and then when it fades out, it's going to end a little bit earlier than the end of the clip. Next, let's take a look at flicker. I'll drag and drop that onto my logo, and if I play that back, you'll see that it flickers, kind of like a light going in and out. If I go to the publish parameters, I have a bunch of controls here. I can change how much of the opacity I want to change. Right now it's at 100%, and I'm subtracting it. So it will randomly subtract up to 100% of the opacity. I can also change the frequency. How often is it flickering? And I can also offset this, or I can make it more noisy or less noisy. And then if I don't like how it looks, I can randomize it by clicking this button here. And now we have a whole new Flickr look. Next up, we have grow and shrink. Let's drag and drop that onto the logo, and you'll see that in one click we have it grow, and then at the end it shrinks. I can also just have it grow by adding the grow only template. Now it starts off at 0% scale and grows to 100%. But at the end you'll notice it doesn't do anything. And if I want it to just shrink, I'll add the shrink only effect. And now it starts off normal and then ends with an out shrink animation. Next, let's play with the move effect. I have my logo here in the timeline and I've made it smaller. I'll add the move effect to my logo and you'll see that it moves from one point to the other over the entire duration of the clip. But the problem is it gets cut off over here, and so I'm limited to this small amount of space. Don't worry, there's a quick way around that. I've put my logo into a compound clip, and if I open the compound clip and select the logo and set the scale down to 50% and then go back to the main timeline, now when I add the move effect, we won't have that problem. You can see I can move it anywhere on screen and it doesn't get cut off. So I'll set the start location and then I'll set the end location. And now the logo moves from the start to the end location. If I open up the inspector, I can change the direction. I can have it reverse. So now it starts in the other side and goes back up to the left-hand side. I can also control the start and end points right here. All right, let's take a look at the shake effect. I have it added to this clip right here, and this is what that looks like. I can customize the look of the shake by opening up the inspector. I can change the amount it shakes, and I can also change the apply mode. Right now I have it set to add and subtract 100 pixels to the X and Y position parameters. I can increase or decrease the frequency, and I can also make it more or less noisy. If I want X and Y to have the same value, I'll select link here. And if I want a new one, I'll just click random seed. And here's what that looks like. Looks more like a handheld camera. I can also zoom out or in so that I don't see the edges of my video clip as it shakes and moves around. I've included this extend screen option so that when it does move around a lot, you don't see black spaces. You can see over here it's mirrored around the image or video. Okay, I've got a vertical video in a horizontal project and it leaves these black bars on the sides. Let's fix that. I'll add the mixed sizes template to my project and I'll change the duration. And you'll see that those black bars have been replaced. We can customize this further with the published parameters. We can change the size of the background and we can change the opacity of it if we want it to be bright or dark. We can also move it around with position and we can even rotate it and flip it. We can control the blur effect. We can add more blur to it if we want. And we can turn the saturation down to make it black and white or very colorful. And then we can control how much the effects are applied. And here's what we've got. In just a few seconds, we fixed that problem of vertical videos in horizontal projects. This also works for horizontal videos in vertical video projects. Let's take a look at HelpPop's camera tools. Let's add this 3D camera effect to our clip. I can add all sorts of camera movements. I can sweep around the X, Y, and Z axis. Let's go for the Y. I'm going to add in -15 to 15 degrees. I can also change the speed. Let's select ease both for a nice natural movement. I can zoom in and out, and I can also do a dolly move, like the camera is coming closer to or getting further away from the subject. And then we can also move the camera around in X and Y position. We can control the strength of that movement, and then we can also decide if we want it to move to that location or away from that. So here's what that looks like. The camera is pulling away, and then it's also sweeping around the Y axis. For a quick 3D effect, drag and drop left or right tilt onto your video clip. And you'll see that this effect pushes the left side of the video away from the camera, creating a 3D effect. It also has a gradient blur to give it that depth of field look, and we can control it with these right here. There's also a prism effect, and we can control the direction and the amount with this on-screen control. If we open up the published parameters, we can see we can move the position of the clip around. We can also change the anchor point, and if we open up rotation, we'll see here that it's already been rotated a little bit, and we can fine-tune that rotation if we want. We can also change the size with the scale parameter here. And then we also have controls for the gradient blur and prism blur down below. For a quick 3D animation, let's add sweep. It zooms out on the clip and it adds a sweep motion around it. If we look at the published parameters, we can change the start and end angles of the sweep. We can also select the speed and which axis it's rotating on. Let's roll the Z-axis. And then here's the size parameter, so we can zoom out more or in if we want. And here's what we've got. Let's take a look at the BetterBox template. Drag and drop it onto your timeline, and then adjust the duration. Now we have this animated letterbox effect. But we can customize it further. Select the clip and open the inspector, and we can turn the animations on and off. And we can also select different aspect ratios. We can also change the color of the letterbox. Let's go back to custom. This height parameter is the space between the letterbox. So the larger the number, the more space between the letterbox bars, and the smaller the number, the closer they get together. If we go to the beginning of the title, we see the letterbox on screen, and so the animation doesn't quite work. That's okay. Use these offsets to clear the letterbox from screen. And then we'll enter the same value for the out offset, and now our animation works just fine. Background offset allows you to move the video below the letterbox. Let's add an animated box to our video. Drag and drop square to the timeline and adjust the duration. Here's what it looks like out of the box. Pun intended. We can move the box around on screen, and then we can use these on-screen controls to change the size and shape of the box. If we click on one of these corner ones, we can change the width and height together, and we can also rotate it. We can customize it even further with the published parameters. We can turn the animations on and off, and we can fine-tune the width and height of the box, and we can add a little rounded corners. We can change the fill color, and we can reduce the opacity of the inside of the box. We can also adjust the fade in and out time of the box. We can change the outline color, and we can change the thickness of the border. And we can also change the opacity of the border or outline. You can also fine-tune the position and rotation here and add a drop shadow to your box. This is how to use the circle mask. Drag and drop it to your clip, and then use these on-screen controls to move the mask around and to change the size of the mask. I want to move the clip and the mask, so I'll use the position parameters under transform to move all of it. I can customize it even more. I can turn the animations on and off. I can fine-tune the size of the mask and the center of it. I can also invert the mask, and I can soften the edges with these controls. Here's what we've got. Next, add animated blur to your video clip. Go to the published parameters. You can turn the animations on and off, and then you can also adjust the blur amount. Right now I have the start blur at 0 and the end blur at 0. Let's turn up the whole blur. This is the blur in between the beginning and end animation. And here's what we've got. If I want, I can start or end the animation with some blur as well. Now let's play with gradient blur. Add that to your clip, and you'll see these on-screen controls. We'll use these to control the start and the end of the blur. If I go to the published parameters, I can increase the amount of blur as well. Now this creates a gradient blur across the clip and gives it a depth of field effect. Let's take a look at this bulge effect. I'll drag and drop it onto my clip, and you'll immediately see some distortion happening. She's got a big mouth, she talks a lot. Alright, we can use this on-screen control to move the bulge around. And then we can use the published parameters to customize the look. We can turn the animation on and off. We can also move the position with these parameters, and we can change the amount of bulge with this slider right here. With scale, we can add more bulge to the image. If we want a pinched look, we'll increase scale, and we can tweak the amount as well, and we get this kind of interesting, funny, pinched look. You can also add this prism blur effect to give it a little more edge. And now her face is bulging. With this extrude effect, you can turn anything 3D. Let's drag and drop this onto my logo, and you'll see it immediately makes this 3D look. I can control that with an on-screen control. I can pull it back to make it even longer and change the angle. We can customize this even further with the published parameters. We can change the angle and the distance, which the on-screen control does as well. We can also use clipping to shorten it up if we need to. We can also tweak the back size to where it looks like it's all coming from one point or spreading out. Use brightness to change the look of the front of the effect. Front brightness changes the front of the 3D effect, this area here. And then back brightness changes the back part of the effect. You can do a different kind of extrude style, a gradient, and then you can control how that gradient looks here. We'll click on this color tag and we'll select a new color. And then we'll select the second color tag and add a different color. And now we have a dark purple gradient. And you can control how much of this effect is applied using the mix slider. That is how to use HelpPop. If you have any questions, email me at raisinhater@stupidраisins.com. Happy editing!